Hello, good people. Welcome back. We're going to start this semester with some factoring review. And so the series of videos is going to walk you through four examples of factoring that we've done before, but I just want you to recall how we did it because it's going to come into play here in the first big unit that we do in January. When I see you again the next time, we'll be doing some factoring with numbers. And so I just want to make sure that we understand what the word factor is. So let me get out of this screen here. So when I say factor, what is a factor? A factor is something that multiplies to get me something else. So when I say factor, and let me make it a little bit smaller here. So let's say, what are the factors of 24? Well, factors of 24 are the terms that when you multiply give you 24. So factors are the things that you multiply to get you that object that you're starting with. I'm starting with 24. So what times what gives me 24? Well, 1 times 24, those are factors. Or 2 times 12, those are factors. Or 3 times 8, those are factors. So we call these factors because they multiply to give me something. But when I do factors of a polynomial, and I'm going to say something like x squared plus 7x plus 12, something like that. I'm still asking you what times what gives me x squared plus 7x plus 12, but now it becomes a little bit more complicated because we're not used to dealing with variables. We're used to dealing with numbers, right? So I can break down numbers. How do I break down a trinomial, like a polynomial here that I see? Trinomial because there's three terms, but this whole thing is a polynomial. I'm looking for what times what gives me x squared plus 7x plus 12. And so when we last talked about this, and I believe it was right before Thanksgiving, I think it was, we talked about using the box method as a way to organize our information. And so that's what we're going to do with these examples. When I ask you to factor, I'm asking you to find what times what gives me x squared plus 9x plus 20. So at the end, you're going to see that we're going to find something times something that gives me x squared plus 9x plus 20. How do we do that? Well, one way you can do that is by doing a box method. And the box method says this. If you make four squares, you're going to put the first term in the first square. You're going to put the last term in the last square. But just like we discussed before, I only have one more term, this middle one, and yet I have two boxes. So I'm going to have to split it up. So the way we do that is we multiply the constant number, so the 20, times the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient is 1. So we multiply these two. And when you multiply 1 times 20, you're going to get 20. And so just like I talked about factors being numbers that multiply to give me some value, I want to know, what are the factors of 20? What are two numbers that when I multiply gives me 20? Well, it could be 1 times 20. It could be 2 times 10. 3 times something? I don't think so. 4 times 5, it could be. And then after that, if I write down 5 times 4, well, that's the same pair, so I don't want to write it again. So I think these are the only three whole numbers, the only three pairs of whole numbers that I can multiply to give me 20. One of these pairs, when I add them, will give me a positive 9. So the question is, which two numbers, when I add them, gives me a positive 9? Well, these two. When I multiply 4 times 5, it gives me 20. But when I add 4 plus 9, 4 plus 5, it gives me positive 9. So these numbers in pink, that's what I'm going to write in here. But not just the numbers, but also whether they're positive or negative, so plus. And then this is 9x, so I need to put an x there. This is 5x, because if I put together 4x's and 5x's, I get 9x's. If I multiply 4 times 5, I get 20. So this is the completion of the box that we need for our box method. But now we play this little game. The little game says, what do these two terms have in common? what can I divide both of these by? Well, I can divide both of them by x because both of them have at least one x in common. And now we take a look at what times x would give me x squared. Because remember, things on the outside, we multiply to give me the box on the inside. So what times x would give me x squared? That would be x. And then what times x would give me plus 4x? And that would be plus 4. And then what times x would give me 5x? Positive 5x. Well, that would be positive 5. And if we did everything right, positive 5 times positive 4 gives me positive 20. But what you just did is you factored. You found out the two things that when I multiply give me x squared plus 9x plus 20. And they're right here on the left side. That's one of the factors, x plus 5. And on top, there's the other factor, x plus 4. And what I'm claiming is if you multiply x plus 5 times x plus 4, you're going to get x squared plus 9x plus 20. And in the next video, I'll show you how you can check that on the calculator. But this is the box method and what we did right before we went to Thanksgiving.